Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cycle 16. We have a lot of students and participants from around the world. We have a lot of European and Eastern European students, and they have we think about ideas, we have goals, we have plans, and we interact with the real world. So Sasha's here to tell us a little bit about how someone who thinks about the things that we think about here has been interacting in the real world with all its problems and glories and triumphs and trials. So thank you very much, Sasha. And this is meant to be a highly interactive session. So if you have comments, not just questions, but comments you want to contribute to the conversation, as you can see, we're sitting in a semicircle. Go ahead and pop them into the chat room, and Grace or somebody will holler them out, and we'll get you into our conversation as well. So with that introduction, Sasha.
Thank you very much for your interest, and I will start probably from short introduction of myself, who I am. I have economic educational background, and I was very active in civic public activities. I was the head of the youth NGO. We've done lots of projects for development of young people. Then I came up to more closer activity with the Ministry of Youth and Sport. I was at the Public Council, head of the youth policy committee, and working more closely with American Embassy, doing some advising about youth issues, and not only to the ambassador of US to Ukraine. And like now I sometimes appear on a TV as like positioning myself as economical and political expert. So now we have a live chance to speak with young Ukrainian expert. So like, and I have will make some short first introduction what I'm going to speaking about, and you can figure out your questions within any moment. So first I want to speak about this general overview of the conflict, starting from Maidan, Crimea, Donbass, like how it influenced on the life of people of different who were in a zone of conflict and who were just regular citizens, and how it influenced on economic situations, like where the country right now, what are the changes, what are the reforms, and like what can we expect for the future. So like, and some small lessons which we can learn from all this situation. So I will start with some short description about Maidan, and each topic. So if you are interested, you can just ask a question to forward me into the to make the flow the most interesting for us. So like Maidan, it starts as at during one night, as when Yanukovych changed it by one night and influenced the direction of the development of the country. So it was preparing that Ukraine will sign up a free trade agreement with the European Union, and just one night he decided, okay, we will not do that. And people were not agreeing, they came to protest on a very peaceful protest against this just dramatical one change per one night. Then it has different...
This was the president at the time.
Yanukovych is the president of those time. It's 14 years, and and then Maidan has a few stages. It turned from absolutely peaceful students like demonstration to some violent event, and it changes into the resign of Yanukovych, and Yanukovych ran away from the country. And like, to understand, and somehow it has a link to the situation in Crimea, in Donbass, because you need to understand that Ukraine is a little bit divided, more on the influence of two parties, not like two ideologically different parties. One, they're more democratic, more in the power right now, and the second one, Yanukovych was their representative for some party of region, and they're more like conservative, Soviet maybe style, like there's a party, but they have a lot of supporters. And when Yanukovych, and on a Maidan, it was very small amount, relatively small amount of people, and some people could feel that they're not satisfied with this change of Maidan. But I personally was an activist who was on Maidan from the first day, and like I do not have like pink glasses of looking all these events. But anyway, like on my opinion, it was the only possible solution and way how it could work, because at some point it came to the attempt of Yanukovych to establish real dictatorship in Ukraine. So like, within some process, he tried to make laws which would gather more than 5 people on the street, not more than three people, 3 cars in a, like 6 cars like in a on the road together. Like all NGO were tried to proclaim as foreign agents, so like NGO almost like shouldn't proclaim themselves as foreign agents, and like so it's real, like it was a real attempt to provide dictatorship, and like students were beaten on the streets, and it's like violence is not, it's like Ukraine is a country where violence against your own people is not acceptable. So like it's one of the reasons why it became like more radical, and at some point people couldn't, it was dangerous for them to leave Maidan, so like it was not other options, because they would be kidnapped or like courted by police at some time. So it was just no, at some point it was no moment to stop. If somebody has some questions or some assumptions about it, because I know that
if you could clarify one point.
Yeah.
So the students came to protest in the Maidan Square, and it was initially,
Yes.
but then when it became violent and the government started reacting in a
Yes.
dictatorial way,
Yes.
that's what's really made it big. The government's
Yes.
own actions led to the response that led to Yanukovych having to run away.
Yes, because it started as
This was unacceptable to the general population.
yes, and then general population, like older people, come to the street against this violence against the students, against the people. So it has different reasons. It started from one reason, and of course it was an accumulative effect of corruption and not satisfaction by the regime of Yanukovych, and it just was a trigger to make it happen. But after violence, of course, changed. So like things changes dramatically. And first it was violence. It was nobody was killed after that, but it's just like students were beaten. But after that, it was it came much more people on the street, and later it was like first kills on the Maidan, like, and the interesting situation when those like snipers who were doing, and they were like, they are from internal police, they are not fined yet. So it's all.
They stood up.
Yes. There is still people who were in charge, who were guilty to giving these orders. They still are not, do not have their penalty.
Sorry, we do know who gave the orders, but we haven't been able to capture them. Is that, or bring them to justice? Is that what you're saying?
It's not like it's not that simple, because in a legal framework, this like those who give
Do you see me now, Grace?
yes.
Okay. All right, we are back online. Sorry, so you're saying it's more complicated than that. We don't know who ordered the people, the snipers to shoot.
Actually, no. We know the names who were in charge of operations, and but it is a process of prosecution. It needs to be evidence-based, all this stuff, and like in it is when it's stopped. So like cases are open, but cases are not closed to go to judges, to go to the trial. So like and like it is just impossible to gather all the evidence.
This is probably, we don't spend too much time on this, but is there a feeling in Ukraine that these people will never be brought to justice? And do they care? Is it the history, or is there a feeling of anger, like there should be justice for this?
Yes, there is a feeling that it should be justice, and there is a feeling that it is not fair. And now like, we have a new prosecutor who promised that now we will do that, we will finish this, like we will solve, like we will close these cases about Maidan, because the previous one we saw that it was not enough of political will for that. It's basically just about political will, and it was not enough. Maybe it's because of some agreements, like because country in a war and you need to be united anyway, and to not make a fire inside the country bigger, then maybe they achieve some agreements between themselves. That's why these cases, they were not so fast developing. But now we see, but anyway, society demands the responsibility for that. And for now, I personally have some expectations that these cases will be finished. The people who were in charge, they will get some penalty, which
That'll be interesting. Okay.
yeah. So then after that it was Crimea. Annexation. Thank you very much. Crimea annexation and Donbass, and all these events a little bit connected, because Crimea annexation was also, it was some use of the situation when in Crimea most live people who do not support current regime, and in Donbass as well. No, not regime, current people who came to the power. And for example, people, those who were in internal service, who were on Maidan, who were against people, they mostly were from Crimea and mostly were from Donbass regions. Because from other regions, people were just rejected to go to, even if it is their job, they were rejected. And now, at some point, it was a situation when people, who will grow close in Crimea, they felt unfair that their kids, who were just working for internal security, and it was their job, and they were just beaten even by people on a Maidan, that that creates some misunderstanding. And in Crimea, it was for a long time working some agencies from Russia developing, preparing the grounds. Then it was referendum, and we cannot call it a democratic referendum, because when we now see how, so it was really annexation according to the not okay with any international regulation. Case in Donbass also quite difficult, and not, there is no unity within, because there are different groups. We need to say that more than 9,000 of people were killed during this time of Donbass, and 20,000 were hurted, got in some injured, and millions of people were removed from those territories, and they removed to Kiev, to other cities, to our villages, not like refugees, but permanently displaced people. And what we have now there are some separatists, somebody asked me about the word, it's the word separatists, how do we call them? Some separatist groups which are within this Donbass region, and they are supported by Russia. There is Russian troops, there are Russian technique, who works there, so it is not internal conflict, it is really a war between Ukraine and Russia, but it is not proclaimed like this, because it will have other coincidences for example, for Ukrainian partners, for European Union countries, or for America to support this, because that's the only reason why it is not called a war, but in fact it is a war, and it is really not internal conflict. And if we say the word terrorists, it's actually cannot be also called terrorists because they, like their main goal is not to make other people afraid of them, but they want to have some special regulations, special regime on these territories. But it would never happen if it would be no Russian influence, if it would be no Russian troops or something like this. So it's like it is a conflict which was prepared by intelligence services of Russia from one side and maybe some other influence from another.
So the current status is Ukraine is at war with Russia.
No.
But unofficially.
Unofficially, but officially is anti-terroristic operation like in Ukraine.
And that's because of politics. If they call it a war, then it creates problems for the EU.
Yes.
So does the Ukrainian government doesn't want to call it a war either?
No, they do not call it, and I think that it's a lot of reasons because of agreements with international partners.
But so like the reality on the ground, if you decided you wanted to go to Donetsk for the weekend and have a picnic, that would be not a good idea, or not even possible, or you get shot, or maybe not, or what's the reality like?
The reality has changed because it was a real war on the ground. Now it is there are lots of cordon, granica, borders. There are lots of borders to cross. So like theoretically, if I want to go there, like I can do that. And like there is some territory, the zone of conflict is different now. Now it's smaller, and it used to be bigger. So like, and on this bigger territories, there were also bombing, and people were displaced. But now we start renovate the cities, and one territory, smaller territory, is still under control of separatists, and they want to make some elections there and to make some special regime for them, like different from Ukrainian law, and like it can be provided, but only these elections can be made only if there is some gun, according to Minsk agreement. There is a plan how it should be, the conflict should be solved, and it should be all the guns should be gone away from these territories.
Not just a ceasefire, but actual disarmament?
Actual disarmament, which doesn't going on now. And like each week we has around 6 or 8 people are killed by snipers. So officially it is like, should be calm. It should be no any fire at all. But 6-8 people are killed now, like each week. But they are professional, professional military. All those, we have also some volunteers who were ready to go to the war, and like they also serve in battalions of these volunteers who are very active from the Ukrainian side, and they've done a lot of job, and they're still active there, but they are also some sort of professional military, which is not within the framework of national military. And one of the cases to learn from all the situation is that it was a huge volunteer movement, volunteer support for people, because at one time it was like real country is a situation of real war, and it is not ready for it at all. Military is not ready, and it is recruitment among regular people, regular young boy who were not has no any wish to go to the war, and they were just recruitment for the war actually. And it's no military was ready. It was ruined for the decades, for the years before by country was not thinking to be in a war, especially with Russia. And we also have some agents from Russia who were also doing this destructive work with our military and destructive work with public opinion also on the ground in Crimea and in Donbass. So it was like, from one side, our power was not caring enough about, for example, strength of the military, and the government of the close country, it was caring enough to have some agents within the military and to destroy it from inside. And when the war started, we also were in a situation that the army was in an extremely bad situation, like bad equipment, bad everything, and we had some agents within it. Of course, like that's also where like could give information to Russia or something like this. And regular people were provided a lot of support, starting from money, food, like clothes, to provide it for military, for those who were just taken from the like students who were taken to go and sent to the war, and for professional military as well. So this support is still like you can still see this support. And of course, it was a feeling of some unity of the country, that it is not a problem only of those people who live in this territory. It is a problem from the whole country, because really, if you live in the west of Ukraine or in Kiev, like or in central Ukraine, you understand that this war will not touch you physically. Like there is no chance that there will be some bombs in Kiev, for example, or in Lviv. But
that's really interesting. I mean, if your enemy is Russia, it's not a small enemy.
Yes.
Why would you feel so safe in Kiev? I mean, how far is it to Donetsk from Kiev? I wouldn't feel safe in Kiev if my enemy was Russia and we're poking the bear in the nose.
Mm-hmm. It's also, this feeling is changed, because for some time, like nobody can feel secure, like not in Kiev, no, especially in central Ukraine. But now, when you see how it develops, and now that it is the escalation of the conflict, so now you can be sure that it will not develop in this way. Of course, like some, crazy accident can happen, but according to like general logic and according to the escalation and all this stuff, you can feel very secure. But of course, it was not the case at the beginning. Because like it was some period when you just like it was unbelievable that Russian troops come to Ukraine, even if like it's not important, but just unbelievable. And you just lost in your expectations. But if they come here, why they cannot come to Kyiv or to central Ukraine? But it was an attempt to hide the real, like from Russia, to hide their invasion, and to make it that it is just Ukrainian people. And also there are some Ukrainian people who support these ideas, but you will not find them in central Ukraine, and you will not find them enough like in Kyiv, or it was some attempt to involve Odessa, for example. It's also very interesting, like in an important city. And I think like one of the plans of Putin can be also to make this territory bigger, but just people didn't support it, because you cannot make this invasion without any local support. So in Donbass, it was some local support. It was prepared, it was developed, but anyway, it was from locals. In Crimea as well. So like people believe that they will live like, and it is not like, it's different. In some cities, in bigger cities, it is bigger support. In small villages where people, locals, because also you need to look on a history. In Donbass, it is a region with a lot of mines, and during Soviet times, it was displaced. People from other places were displaced and brought to Ukraine to work on a big plants, fire plants on mines. And there are a lot of people who are originally not ethnic Ukrainians; they're ethnic Russians. And that's why it was easier to develop this conflict, because villages are ethnically Ukrainian, but cities there are a lot of ethnic Russians, and in Crimea the same. In the big cities near the sea, near the water, there are a lot of ethnic Russians. So it was okay, it was logical for them, but the percentage is not that high, like 30 maybe percent, it wouldn't be enough for fair referendum. And in villages, people are ethnic Ukrainian, so they keep their pro-Ukrainian positions. And so those who were not agree with, they moved from Crimea, and but not everybody was able to do it, because, for example, price of property in a small village in Crimea, it will be less. It will be not enough to establish yourself in a Kiev, for example. So like a lot of people moved also to some small villages close to the region, but to have better life, to have a lot of opportunities to find a new job, to make a new business, you need to move to some more developed regions, like to Kiev, for example, and or some big city, but you do not have enough of money. And it's also to a question about old people, there are now a lot of old people stay in Donbass. So those who could live, they lived, but not everybody was able to live it. So, and it's also some possible to go to visit them through these borders, and they have some different documents and special documents. And for journalists, it also was some special regimes. They have some special agreement with the local, and it is anarchy there on this territory. Yeah, and it is anarchy not in a good way, but in a worse way you can imagine. This is a rule of power, a rule of those who have guns, like just like, and it's just difficult to control them and to come to some agreement, even to come to some agreement with these local separatists, like creation, like separatism.
Is it true, just curious, is it true that journalist managed to vote 8 times in the referendum? The one guy, is that just a myth or is that documented?
Like, I'm not sure, but like theoretically, and like it's okay. You know, like even on regular elections earlier, there are cases when people voted 3 times, even without situation of war or something like this, and it is called even some special technology. When the buses are going and forward, they have some like you vote not with your passport, but with some special like document, and you go and show it everywhere. So like it's possible even without war, but and if she is special need to organize a special deal, and she's no other controllers, no other watchers for elections. That's absolutely. It sounds for me absolutely, normal in a way. I wouldn't be surprised.
But not just. I would imagine that in the same way, there's a general feeling in central and western Ukraine that there should be justice for the snipers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that most of the Ukrainians are not saying, "Oh well, Russia stole all this stuff. We lost. We're done. We're going to ignore this." I'm sure that they don't want to let go. They want to see justice, or they want to see Ukraine restored. But the reality is that getting these pieces of land back from Russia is difficult.
Yeah.
So what's the status now? Do people, are they just sort of accepted it and they're getting on with their lives, or is there a plan to retake Ukraine, or dream or not, or where do things stand now?
Like it's different for Crimea and it's different for Donbass. For Crimea, people would like to have it, like there is a feeling that it is unfair, that it is not okay. People would like it back, but everybody is understood that it is not possible now. So, okay, we live without Crimea. We go to the sea, to Odessa or to Italy or to somewhere else, and like it's some sort even of motivation for people to go to other countries for vacation. Like my general observation is that people start to go to Italy much more, like to Greece and whatever, and like it's some also sort of misunderstanding with general public in Russia, because it's longer story. It's like we are brothers, and it's not okay behave from brothers. Okay, you have mad president like who is passionate about like his power and to make Russia great and who to take these territories, but the reality is that Russian population, Russian people, they support him. And in this, like, it was a big proud for them to take the Crimea back. Krim nash, like, Crimea is our, and like, and Ukrainians look at that like, come on, like, what's the best is like for proud to take the Crimea and to be proud that Crimea is yours now. And it is even more difficult but it was peaceful. So like it's okay, like it's strange, but it's peaceful. But in Donbass, it is real blood invasion, lots of killed people. It's a war, but how you can support, like if you're a normal person living in Russia And there are lots of evidence that it is Russia troops, there is Russia technique, like it's your country is involved, how you can support this? Look,
Can I ask, actually, how big is Donbass and how many people live there?
It was around, I would say, 5 million of people. I can be mistaken, so like I can check it later. But I would just suppose that it is around 5 million of people, and most there moved.
And you mentioned that around 90,000 people died over?
9,000.
9,000. And do you know how many troops are still left from either side, Ukraine and Russia?
I can say the numbers, how many troops. I can say no, I cannot answer. I can check it, like, or Google it later, but like for now there is smaller amount of military there because conflict is not in active phase, but it is still some kills.
So there are international negotiations. There's presidents and whatever Merkel coming to negotiate in Minsk between Russia literally and Ukraine. I still can't wrap my head around why it's not recognized as a war internationally. If you have international negotiations between literally Putin and Ukraine, and you also have, and why is Ukrainian government not pushing more to recognize it? Especially when you catch Russian soldiers, and I've seen videos, so you can comment on that also, where Russian soldiers say, yes, we're Russian soldiers, we have gotten orders here, and now we were captured in Ukrainian territory. So
like, as I am not a Ukrainian government and I am not Angela Merkel, like it's difficult to give a clear answer for that why it is not happens. For like my
He wasn't here when we gave the earlier answer.
Yeah, but
He wasn't in the room when you said before about if you officially recognize it as a war, that creates problems for the European.
so just yesterday we were told about the United States. Officially, Congress didn't declare any war since the Second World War. There are American tanks in Iraq, in Afghanistan, all over the world. They're killing people. Iraq, Afghanistan, and so on. There is no war.
Yes, he took action as a president. I'm not sure how it's called, but the United States was in war in Iraq officially.
Yeah, it's just legal. Now, politically, it was a war. It is called Vietnam War. It is called Iraq.
But officially, they're police actions, or
it's kind of circumvents the power of the parliament.
yes.
No,
Okay, but back to
if you proclaim a war, it can lead to third world war, because then as a country, like we had some agreements about, for example, like Great Britain and America, they should protect Ukrainian integrity, because when we give up our nuclear power, it was listen up an agreement that these countries will now protect our integrity, and they haven't. So they haven't done their obligations. And if it is a war, again, they will need to be to choose a side, and it can lead to a third world war, and nobody wants it. Nobody is ready for that. It is and it is why it is. I think it's the main reason why it is not proclaimed a war, and it is actually a war, just to not bring bigger international escalation to that.
Is government communicating then a plan how they're going to solve this?
Yes, there is. It is Minsk agreement actually. It is achieved with this participation of European leaders in Minsk, and it should be de-escalation. It should be and it should be all guns should be should be slow
disarmament.
Thank you. Like it should be full disarmament for these territories. It should be all troops should be go away, and it should be elections hold there to make some special regime for them. But for now, if it would be bigger pressure for elections, it would be not fair, because if there are troops, if there are guns, you cannot, and if you cannot make people who moved from those territories, because most of people moved from those territories, and they have a right to vote like on this, and this election should be according to Ukrainian law. If we cannot do that, it makes no sense to make this election, because it will be just legalizing of this separatist movement, who are just, like bandits. They are like, just. So for now, it is in some freeze stage, when officially it should be disarming, but in fact, there are some small kills, like almost each day, like each week.
We say it's simmering. Instead of the pot boiling over, it's just simmering at the moment. It's not officially over, but it's not exploding.
But we can.
How stable is that? Do people in Kiev feel like I can just go about my day-to-day business and carry on as though nothing was happening, or are they worried? Or?
Like for some period, it was like it's a big pressure on your mind, like, and like you read the news, you worry about this, and like everybody has somebody who is on a war, who was on a war, just sent to protect the country, like not by his wish. So it's like it touched everybody, and everybody, like almost everybody, like was ready to help by voluntarily. And there is some additional tax on a war, like around 4%, to support military, like because it was not equipment enough.
Did you have any friends who were killed?
I have friends who were killed, like I know guys who were killed on Maidan, and I do not have friends who were killed in Donbass, but I have friends who are there now, and who are there now, and who are like who've been there, who don't touch it. So I was pretty lucky. Maybe it's my good all round. I don't know. I just like I was pretty lucky about that, but I think a lot of it's difficult to say how many people do not have friends who were killed. I know that a lot of my friends have a lot of their friends who were killed.
And
I have a question.
go ahead.
So Russia depends a lot on Ukraine's the ability to transport its natural gas resources through Ukraine that provides energy resource for most of Europe, as I understand. How much to what degree has Ukraine used that as leverage in negotiating with the Russians? And to what degree have the Europeans pressured Ukraine and not destabilizing that?
The question for the online audience is about the pipelines going from Russia through Ukraine into the European Union. And does that give Ukraine any leverage, and has it been used?
Actually, it was leverage for the whole previous years. Like it is always, when we speak with Russia, it was always some sort of the topic of the argument, these pipes. And also, probably it's also one of the reasons why it's all started to begin, because Ukraine started to use it in a more hard way, like negotiated for quite bigger price for transport. And that's also can be a reason why they started to build pipes around, and like everything is like. I was doing some research for our Institute of Strategic Studies about these energy issues, and when you see this picture, it is quite sad, because again, there is a strategy from Russia of their dominance in a region, and it is energetic dominance. And and Ukraine's energy depends on Russia. We just change our sources of energy this year, like we're able to eliminate these positions. And in Donbass, it also a lot of coal and a lot of some gas, and it also can be used to this diversification of the energy supply, like to get independence in energy supply from Russia. It also can be a reason why it happens in Donbass, because we lose this, we are losing this argument in negotiation. And in Crimea there is some shelf gas, which is not like it was also few possibilities to develop this with some big international corporations to get this shale gas, but under the end of COVID, these deals haven't happened, and now like it is not reachable. It also can be one of the like very pragmatic reasons besides this geopolitical stuff why war is happening, why violence is happening. It's just very pragmatic economical energy reasons as well, I believe. I'm sure.
Certainly a common reason. Somebody else had a point they wanted? I thought so.
Yeah, I just want to ask, so how Ukraine's changed their energy?
Now we buy it from European countries, like they buy it from Russia and we buy it from them.
Roma.
Of course, we are Belarus following this whole issue very closely.
It's the Minsk agreement.
After all. Yeah, I was literally looking at America science. 300 meters away from those. Whatever. The question is, there is certain thoughts, at least what I see and what I read, that most of these guys in Donbass are really another type. There is a lot of hate speech about criminals and different breed of people there, but and there is a lot of economic stuff that shows that these regions were like budget deficit, and they're not like were producing. They mostly were donation from central budget to keep them up. And there are a lot of thoughts, at least for the last years, that basically they should be separated. There should be no war because the guys really want to be out. They're really not okay with the current government. There probably no way in the next 10, 20, 30 years to make it happen like in a peaceful way without like another, like in Spain or something, another brewing conflict. So maybe just cut it out, give it to Russia to sort out all problems. And what is it? Is it like more like intellectual talks, or is there some feelings? And is it politically possible at all?
First, yes, there are some mental differences between people in different regions in Ukraine, but they are not so big as they shows. And historically, we used to have this party of region who represents more like which is more popular on the eastern Ukraine, and like other parties who are more popular in central and west Ukraine. And it is a process of democratic changes. You see them, there is one win, then another one win, like it changes. So like it's more, it's just internal case of different tastes that let's say like this. And those people who are like Donbass, it is not like the same. You can also say that all the people, they are different from from others. It's not true, because like I'm originally from central Ukraine. I feel myself quite close to the east Ukraine and quite close to the west Ukraine. And west Ukraine is different from me, and east Ukraine is different from me. But I am absolutely okay with all of them. I have lots of friends from those sides, and like not from those sides, but like from east, from west, and from central Ukraine. So it just it's just more smooth changes.
I'm totally fine. I believe Basques are also close, and in Turkey there is some separatist problem. But basically the guys want to be out.
Yeah, like Scottish, Scottish people in Great Britain, or Northern Irish people in Great Britain.
There's a lot of stuff, but
there is no anti-terroristic operation there going on, right? They said, okay, you're gonna have a referendum if you decide to.
First, who wants to be out? How many people want to be out? Few bandits who have guns from Russia.
Starts, but if we separate from this hate speech, there is a lot of support to this invasion. Like, a lot of local support. There is a lot of, I don't know, maybe anecdotal evidence, but there is no few bandits. There are a whole bunch of not military, not agents of KGB, just local people who wants to be part of Russia.
Yeah.
I believe it's more or less, we could argue about the percentage, but there is certain huge amount of
But she did say 30% to begin with, approximately.
She said it
30%.
about the Crimean. She
Right.
actually, maybe
Yes,
she was
yes.
mistaken.
And then
but
other people left. So
I googled
what's
it.
left now will be
No,
more
yes,
pro-Russian
yes.
because
Why
the
do you
people who
say-
went there are gone.
Why do you suppose that those people, like the opinion and wish of those people who left is less important from those people who are cooperated with Russia?
Okay, my point
And
was
more
not
people
to-
left
to-
this
to-
state.
to-
Much more people left. You know, like, and they lived on this territory,
Yes, the point
and
is,
they didn't support it.
the point is, let's not argue with, maybe it's even a few bandits and everybody else is just, okay, a few bandits, fine. The point is, the guys, the people want out.
Yeah.
And as the central government, as the economy, it's like, from the economic point of view, it's probably also okay. So why don't, is it politically possible? I was not trying to argue this. My question was basically whether it's politically feasible, whether it's in general circulation, like everybody discussing, because I am supposing that my views is limited to a few Facebook guys, and
No, I think it's politically impossible because of the country integrity, and
you dropped off Crimea issue. It's not discussed anymore.
it is discussed, but it's
Why?
make no sense to we shouldn't forget this topic. We should bring it all the time, because but to make it urgent, it's make no sense. And do you speak now about Crimea, or do you speak now
No, about
Donbass?
Donbass. Crimea is done. It's like,
No, let's see. We'll see. History will show is it done or not. But about Donbass, there are quite the percentage of people who support Russia is not the big as you can have the feeling, because much more people moved from it. Another point, there is a lot of invasion of Russian troops and Russian agents. It is not okay that some Russian military come, or military from other countries or agents from other countries come to come to another one. They support whatever
I can pose a metaphor. Suppose the Polish people who felt sympathy for the Catholic population in Belarus on the Polish side of Belarus decided those are our brothers. And they started sending agents into eastern Belarus to proselytize, we should reunite with our Polish brothers and spread this idea. And they started a similar war. And then everybody who didn't agree left. And all that was left was the pro-Polish group. Can you imagine a metaphor there for the situation? I'm not trying to take sides. I'm trying to create an analogy here. And what she's saying is, Crimea was one situation. This situation is like my metaphor. And even if all that was left was people who wanted to separate and be part of Poland, the rest of Belarus would still feel wrong. They would feel like, somebody stole something from us and they wouldn't want to let that go. And a real world analogy would be Kosovo. But this actually gets back to, I think, his question for you, because the reality on the ground in Serbia is that they're screwed, right? They're not getting Kosovo back. They've been bombed by NATO once already. They're not doing that again. And every Serb I've ever talked to is like, no, Kosovo is part of Serbia. This is ridiculous. It's a robbery. It shouldn't be happening. But at least the younger ones, when I talk to them, they're like, yeah, but right now I'm more focused on my job. I want a job. I need to work. So they do not agree. And they are not okay with Kosovo being separated off in a separate country. But they're not going to go to war, and they don't want a war. They basically don't want to think about it anymore. They're tired of hearing about it. So in a way, that is a political feasibility, even though nobody agrees. It's happening anyway. Can you imagine something like that happening in Ukraine? Or, would Ukraine really go back to war with Russia?
No,
now there's been a de-escalation.
For now, all possible, modification of the war with Russia, it happened. Because, What should I answer?
I guess the most relevant question, and we're running on in time here, and we wanted to hear about the situation.
And like
Okay.
back to like your question, and which is, again, it's a lot of propaganda, and there are some emotional moments. For example, like when it was Maidan, they didn't support Maidan. They felt people can feel that they are not heard. Their opinion is not heard. But now, they also change in their opinion because, you can say I am for Russia, but when you see that Russian troops come here and it is a real war, you can stop to support this.
So basically, your answer is that in reality there is no local support for Russians.
There is some local support.
Some local support.
Yeah, there is some local support.
Nobody knows how much,
It's not that big, just not
How
ready.
can you
say.
be
Yeah.
Because I know that much
Guys,
more people
actually
move.
have a question for you.
much
because
more
this
people
is really alarming the way you're asking it. Like, are you? So let me ask you. Do you know that Crimea is now part of Russia?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Do you know that Putin was previously saying that there are no Russian soldiers in Crimea?
Yeah, there were obviously Russian soldiers.
Yeah.
We're not sure if
there are no
Can
Russian
I
soldiers.
finish now?
Yeah,
I wasn't sure when you were.
take your time. Then I tell you
So,
story
okay,
about
so-
the Crimea, my own.
Right. So can we argue that there are Russian troops in Donbas region right now?
You mean, can we stipulate that there are?
You specifically, can you argue against that? Can you say that there are no Russian troops in Ukraine, in Donbas region?
No,
whatsoever?
because there are.
I can't say that. Yeah,
No, I believe
You
there are.
can't say that.
I can't say that.
Okay. So what do you think is happening there? So you're basically saying that there is a full revolution going from inside, that the locals, the so-called separatists, are trying to break free, and all the Russian involvement is as accidental, and they're supporting their Russian ethnic brothers, whatever, in Donbas region. So that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is clearly just a total different perspective of what I have, and I guess of what Oleksandra is saying. So your question about the amount of separatists is really irrelevant because you literally have a totally opposite view of what's going on. So you should be just saying what you think instead of trying to pick on this one small detail. I think what's going on is a vision of a different country, and I think comparing it to Scotland is just ridiculous because Scotland is a separate country. It's in a union in UK, United Kingdom, right? So, and there is no war going on. There is no UK military that would be present and forcing Scots to stay in there. They have referendums and be democratically. So when I look at this issue, I can see there. Clearly, I think there's an army of Russians there. And how can you even talk? It doesn't even matter then if there's any local support, because there's an army, a freaking army. Just the same what's happened with Crimea, where Putin and the Russian government was saying that they're not involved. For months and months, they were saying there are no Russian soldiers, these green men with automatic rifles and everything that looks just like Russian army. It's no Russian army. Now the same thing is happening in Donbass, and we just have totally clear different views here.
Yeah, and I want to support and to develop. If you are a Russian army and it's not a problem to find locals, and especially if you choose a way to make some money and to make for living and to get to power or whatever, and you need, for example, 300 of locals, to say that, hey, there is Ukrainian leaders, and but
That's basically what happened in Maidan. How many people were there in Maidan? There are 50 million people living in Ukraine. How many were there in Maidan? Not even 1%. How can 1% decide what whole country of 50 million people would do, huh?
It's very dangerous thing, because I said to you that some foreign country have found locals in Donbass to represent their interests. And you say that's exactly what happened in Maidan, and I cannot agree with that. I can agree that it is a revolution, and it is small amount of active people who decided for the whole country, but it was a will of those of those people, and if you would smile and suppose that some American influence on these people, something like this revolution was made by Americans. I would also come to this longer and bigger discussion, because of course we can see and feel that there is some American influence, and these people, they are pro-European, maybe pro-American, but it is not direct influence. It's maybe it's done in a more very smart and very sophisticated way, through cooperation, through years, through development, through bringing values of freedom, of values of democracy, and that's how it works. But it is not Russian troops come and say what to do, what you should do. Should you live on your land, or should you move to search for a better job in Kyiv or something?
That's a different story.
So you cannot compare these cases.
My question was totally different. I don't know how to develop this. My question was if the guys want to leave. Yes, I don't know whether they want it or not.
But the ones
you can take your baggage. You can take your baggage and go to Russia.
Yeah. The question is, you cannot be friends by force. Basically, what is if they want to leave? I don't know. Maybe it's a few bandits. But when Ukrainian army came there, they will be total this. They will be against it, right? So they will be total place of, I don't know, discomfort, some problems, etc., etc. It's very hard to be good by force.
If you want to move, if you love Russia, it is not an area even.
It's hate speech.
Let me say, Eddie, I was in Crimea in 2009. I lived on the seaside, and there was a base, touristic base. So let's say houses, we have houses here. So there were two guys living in the neighboring house, and they were speaking Russian about they were unsatisfied that there is a new law, and in the cinemas, all the movies would be in Ukrainian instead of Russian. I said, what the fuck? You're Ukrainians, you live in Ukraine. Why are you not satisfied that the movies would be in Ukrainian? They said, we're not Ukrainians, we are Russian. I said, that's strange. I Googled. On 2010, they were this census. Yeah, and 70% of people living in Crimea, 70, they called themselves Russians, not Ukrainians. About 15-20% called themselves Ukrainians, and the rest were basically Tatar population of Crimea. So 70% of the people living in Crimea call themselves Russians. It's yeah, I live in Vilnius, I say I'm Belarusian, but still I live in Vilnius. You're Lithuanian. That's 70%, let's imagine, yeah?
And we
How
need to
that
remember
has anything to do with what we're talking about. Either you're delusional or I'm not understanding you at all. There is an army, men with guns, there's yellow steel things coming out of their.
But let's assume that the people,
they come and they're everywhere with rifles.
they didn't come when they started.
Right, guys.
Okay, when all these things started.
we speak about Crimea, and you speak about.
Yeah,
No,
okay. I'm speaking about
Crimea.
Okay.
I followed this very closely, and I, read and write in Russian, and I understood everything was going on. There were green men appeared in Crimea.
How many of them were? There were Ukrainian military bases. Could this Ukrainian military bases in Crimea, how many of them? 6, 7, 8? How many of them? And how many Russian soldiers were there? Not a single gunshot. Why didn't Ukrainians shoot those green Russian people?
That's different story. No? It's different question why it happened. And
why didn't they fight for their land? Would you fight for their land?
Actually, if I may, I would like to say I don't think we're going to resolve all the different points of view about what happened in Ukraine, and that was not ultimately the purpose of this conversation. What we really wanted to ask Sasha was, what did you learn from this, and why are you still smiling and not crying? What can you tell students in other places who might find themselves in time of conflict? It seems to me that you may not agree with everybody about what went on. That's okay. Let's agree to disagree. Let's say, if you will, what are there lessons? Are there any lessons?
First, if you see some problems, try to eliminate it, try to solve it at the beginning when it is small. So for example, with this Crimea issue, like it was this language issue for years, and like if like the government would work on it more precisely, it would be a different story. If they would pay more attention to the situation with the army, it would be a different story. So if you have some problem, you need to solve it like at the beginning. Listen to others, hear to others, respect to others, because also between this like different mentality, it was like, and maybe make jokes on each other, it will reduce some aggression, to not let
Resistance.
what resistance and like no, really I want to say aggression, because you will have like that's how Sweden, yeah, that's how, not Sweden, Switzerland. That's how in Switzerland they're doing this, also multicultural country, and they just have real jokes in each other, like Germans on French, and like they teasing each other all the time. Maybe it can be also part of, and Ukrainians, they love jokes, they do a lot of jokes, but always it is important to have critical thinking to everything, to not believe to propaganda, to not believe to know any medium, but to go and to see by yourself. There was very low mobility among people from East and West Ukraine, so and their reality was formed by television, and it was, for example, people on the bus, their reality was formed by Russian television, because ethnically they are Russians, and some of them are ethnically Russians, because of the Russian population diaspora is the biggest in Ukraine, 30%. So it's a lot of people. So, like, but if you would travel and you see on yourself, and it was some legends developed for them, like people from East were afraid to go to West, because they thought that they will be hated by those people, they cannot speak Russian on West Ukraine, but it is not true at all. At all. You will go to Lviv, it's very nice, it's have lots of very beautiful places. If you will speak Russian, it will be absolutely okay. Like there is no danger for you, but people really believe that it is physical danger to go to another region of Ukraine, which is not true. But if they would move, if they would travel, that would be like they would have and not listen to propaganda, but see it on their eyes, and have friends there. That will be different story. Another point that some unity and some support for others, it is important, because people showed a lot of support for those who were in trouble, and of course it makes you feel good about that. It is not the problem of person who is in a like hurt in a bad situation, but you can always help to these people who appear in such situations. And Ukraine now is very dynamic, and there are a lot of changes, and we haven't touched this point there are lots of reforms going on. There are lots of possibilities. There are a lot of possibilities for young people, and it's also why it is so interesting place to be. You will not be bored. Like you live like in a movie. Sometimes you feel like a horrible movie. But like there are lots of events, like sometimes it is drama, sometimes among politics there are it's so ridiculous, like you are like in a comedy, but it's interesting to be them. Sometimes you can be tired because all this negative news, they have a cumulative effect, and you go tired from this difficulties.
Can you talk more about possibilities? This is very central to what I was hoping we would get at, actually, because entrepreneurship is one of our things here, and I could imagine, war being terrible for entrepreneurship.
Yes.
But I can also imagine it opening up possibilities. But now you're unofficially at war still. It's it's a difficult situation. We've just seen how difficult it is to get any kind of agreement or resolve anything here. An object lesson. It was very clever of you to organize this. That was a joke. Ukrainians like jokes, I hear. But you just said there's all these possibilities happening in Ukraine. And I think a lot of people would think, wow, like that's the last place in the world they would go to look for possibilities right now. Can you tell us about that?
For example, like one side is there is possibility for young people to go closer to the power, to be politically engaged, and it was like for a lot of countries it is not possible, like to at young age to become a deputy or at young age to become a minister, but because of this demand from a society for changes and some low quality of the administration, like there are a lot of possibilities for young people to develop themselves as such as to make a career. Another point is can be good conditions for development of entrepreneurship, and we go this from like there is very low salaries, and sometimes to go to real usual job is not motivated for you enough. But again, it's possible to live with a very small money, so that it can give you some time and maybe additional motivation to start your own business, because you will make much more money, and when you have some period when you need to only spend or you cannot make profit very fast, it's very small amount of money which you need to start it, because the cost of living is quite small, especially if you are in internet business. You can go to Lviv or Ivano-Frankivsk, because in Kiev rent will be higher, but you can go to Lviv, have amazing life with a lot of it's amazing food, it's good places, good cafes, good infrastructure, and you can have it comparatively for nothing. Like if you compare it with similar cities in Europe, for example. And
can I interrupt you for a moment? I have a question about the workforce and the young generation in the East and the Central. Do you see a migration to the West? Or
of course, when it was war, also a lot of very talented, active Ukrainians, especially guys, boys, they moved to Poland because to escape of the war, because it was nobody was protected. They could just take and grab and send to the war, and a lot of talents they moved to Poland. And if we speak about immigration or some other countries, but it is much more simple to do it to Poland, which is just close, more cheap, and language almost all language is similar. And also there are of course people. There is always internal migration from small villages or from small towns to bigger one to centers. And there is Donetsk. It was one of the centers where students were going from those regions. Now they are moved to, and universities are moved to other places, to Vinnytsia or to Kiev. So and it's Donetsk. It was quite rich city. It was in terms of capital, it was probably second city after Kiev. So it's lots of also capital, and wealthy people also moved to mostly to Kiev, but not only. And people were afraid to move to western regions because of these previous stories and propaganda about stereotypes. Yeah. But those who moved, they found that it is quite okay. But of course, there are some situations when level maybe of culture can be lower, and it is frankly for a lot of people from those regions, level of culture can be different. And when they move to other places and they do not behave in a nice way, there can be some conflicts. It's also true.
We have a couple more minutes before we break for lunch. Does anybody else have a comment other than reopening the war?
With this, now Ukrainian situation, which is it was economic drop, it was inflation, it was instability, but now we are in a situation which is all this macroeconomic things they are stabilized. Now we have the flex exchange rate, which is much higher than it used to be. But anyway, for now there is no, it is flex, and it will be Like there is no reasons to draw like for currency to evaluate to keep the evaluation, and like also some stability come, and there are as we sign up free trade agreement and we took some long like credits from IMF. We have a lot of obligations to change the country and to provide good laws, like, which also will keep to change the country for the better in a more efficient way. There is some
Sorry,
directions.
is it easy or even possible for foreigners to go there and set up shop? If you convince me that Lviv is the place I want to go next, and I want to go buy a house there.
Yeah, it's not difficult, but and even now there is they create some new institution which will be support foreign investors, because the next step, the next idea is to try to attract more investors. It's like not simple case, and like only those who are interested in very like in quite risky probably property, like to get more gain from like low prices, low salaries. So, and they will make some privatization, big privatization, I would say, like lots of objects of different size, like big one, middle, like small, and they are also going to support these investors who will be interested in state property, in state ownership. But there is no land market. So, like still, you cannot buy Ukrainian. You can buy a house, but you cannot buy agricultural land, for example. You can rent it for long period, and like it will be some deregulation, and they will try to create very attractive investment climate, but it is not that easy probably to do. There are lots of how to say
Fear. Yeah.
Not fear. Like it's not that simple. If you have lots of regulations, it will take time to eliminate it in a proper way. But if you will have support of government and this institution which will support investors, it will be much easier. All locals' problems were solved by locals. Like.
I guess specifically, it's not just. I guess we're out of time, but just real quick, it's one thing to be interested in foreign investment. It's another thing to be interested in foreigners. And does the average Ukrainian, would they feel resentful if a bunch of people from London and Paris or New York started showing up, buying stuff and setting up shop there, or would they welcome that?
They would welcome it. It's very friendly environment for foreigners, I would say. It was not friendly environment for foreign business either. But from people, it's always very friendly. And now, especially if you are English speaker, in general, because like I was working with Americans, like, and I'm quite critical to that, like they are not our friends, but it just happens by accident that we were like invaded by Russia, not by Americans, for example, and they are like in a opposite, so it's just coincidence of interest. I take it as coincidence of interest, but majority of people take it as like friendship. Like they help us, they support us, something like this. So it will be very welcome, very welcoming for foreigners, for people from European Union, or from not that welcoming from Russia.
Okay, well,
What if Russian businessmen decide to come to Ukraine? Would they have a lot of resistance then?
It depends, because a lot of Russian business is still operating actually. But when you go for the shop, like to shop, it was some special sign for Russian products, and people didn't want to buy it. So like it was some campaign like to not buy Russian products. And like people from Russia, they're still doing business in Ukraine. It's like those who won't do it, it's do it. It depends. Like, and what will you do? Maybe they in general public you will not be that welcoming. But again, like it will depends also what would you say, what position would you have. If you say that I think that occupation of Crimea is okay, that occupation we are Russians, we are strong, it's cool that we are on Donbass, of course people wouldn't take it okay.
a Putin t-shirt is not a good idea.
Yeah. But Russians also have different positions. If you are like more liberal, you are do not support Putin, and you are, or at least you do not support in these issues, like you will be welcome. And I have no problems with speaking with my Russian friends. Another case is big business in Russia is all connected to Putin, to president. And if you are big business that will come, like Russian business will come here, it's understandable that you are like that probably country or like at least regular people will not support you because you are pro-Russia, like pro-Putin, like by definition.
I think also Ukrainian businessmen have some business in Russia as well. Like Poroshenko has his factory in Lipetsk. I mean, they produce chocolate there in Russia.
He already closed it. Yeah.
Regards entrepreneurial possibilities.
But there are frankly there are businesses operating in like between Ukraine and Russia, and I personally do not think that it is so bad thing. Again, this region, this main like and our trade like earlier, our main trade partner was Russian. It was one of the reasons why economy dropped because of this losing of this trade partner. European market is much bigger, it's much more interesting, but it should have much more regulations and it requires higher quality of products. It's much more. You need to change your production to be able to export.
You had a comment about
Yeah, like entrepreneurship possibilities immediately opened after this situation erupted for Belarusian guys.
Yes,
Usually-
if Russia was out, Belarus could move in.
It's usually no. Just I don't know. At least 4 or 5 of my clients, they set up stuff that basically some stuff was previously constructed in Russia, and basically they ship parts to Belarus. Just few moves with a screw, and then it's Belarus products, no Russian products, and it's totally okay to import it to Ukraine. And since it was custom-free zone between Belarus and Russia, it doesn't add any hassles with it. So it was enormous possibilities to set up the same trade routes Russia-Ukraine, but without marking it as Russian products.
My Belarusian family, I actually have Belarusian family now. They love to go to Ukraine now because everything's so much cheaper. Like after the Russians left, the big market fall off, prices are low. It's a great place to go on a holiday as far as they're concerned.
Yes, and
Ukrainian level of prices. right
But
now?
prices are low because of exchange rates,
Yes.
because currency drop. But but inside the country, prices are higher. No,
You just said it was cheap to live there. Food you could live on.
I mean like
I mean,
it-
for ordinary Ukrainians.
for foreigner, or if you compare prices, like it's if you compare prices, Ukrainian prices now and Polish prices, or maybe I'm not sure about
Okay,
Russian
in
prices.
Ukrainian, well, I forgot what they're called.
But if you have your income in hryvnia,
Okay.
for like your income hasn't increased, but the prices
Prices have,
increased.
but okay, in dollars it's okay.
Like in
For
dollars,
Ukrainians, it's more expensive. For foreigners, it's
I
cheaper.
understand.
yeah.
And Ukrainian IT guys are now cheaper than interns. No, it's
That's-
true.
I get it. Okay, business opportunity, Ukraine.
Yeah,
There are
guys
also
are cheaper
very
than-
good IT guys.
Yeah, and I mean it's possibilities for you because for
If
Belarus.
you have a startup idea,
Yeah.
you need to get on a plane to Kiev and find some IT guys.
Lots of them and very good.
Okay, well, thank you everybody very much. Very lively discussion. Okay, now you guys
And
want
open
boxing
for
gloves?
further